Hello Yanai, Miss Norris here, and welcome to lesson 9 on Journey's Poetry. This is our third lesson now on Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. So we've already learned a bit about the context of this song. We've looked at some of the language and kind of devices being used in the song and looked at some metaphors. This lesson, we're going to be doing something a bit different, and we're going to be looking at how you can complete some internet research at home on this poem, and how you can create your own study notes or revision guide or revision poster based on your own research. So I'm really excited for this lesson and to see how you get on with that. But first of all, I'd like you to just pause the video now, and for your do now today, I want you to try and think of at least 2 metaphors used in Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. You need to say what the metaphor is, so give the quote that the metaphor is in and explain what it might be talking about. So pause the video now, have a go at that on OneNote or on paper. Okay, here's some things that you may have come up with. So first of all, sweet chariot. This could be a metaphor for death. So the chariot is something that carries you to heaven after you die, or it could be a metaphor for being transported to freedom, so some kind of vehicle that will transport slaves to freedom. Band of angels, this could be a metaphor for dying as well, and going to heaven, or it could be a metaphor for kind people helping slaves to be free, so people that might be helping slaves escape or find freedom. My soul feels heavenly bound, another option. This could mean that you're looking forward to going to heaven, or it could mean hoping for a better future and freedom. So those are some of the metaphors that you may have picked out. So well done if you got any of those correct. So today we're going to be looking at doing some internet research. So it's not going to be a very long lesson today because I actually want to kind of put the learning into your hands a little bit and get you using some research of your own to come to your own conclusions and find some interesting information about this poem. So doing your own research on a topic can be a really, really good way to learn more about it and start to form your own opinion. So obviously I give you, information about the poems and I can teach you lots of things about the poems, but sometimes it can be really helpful for you to find that some information out for yourself, because then you can start to have a really deeper understanding of the poem and understand some of the kind of context behind it. And you can also focus on the areas that you're the most interested in. So if you're really interested in the history behind it, or if you're really interested in kind of what the modern interpretations, for example, you can focus your research more on the areas that interest you. So that's another really good advantage of internet research. So this lesson we're going to look at some strategies for how you can research a topic yourself at home. So here are my kind of top tips for doing internet research. First of all, when you're searching, you're probably going to use a search engine like Google or Bing, most likely, but try to find pages from websites which are larger institutions. For example, things like the British Library, the BBC, the web pages of maybe universities, newspapers, kind of big organisations, because they're likely to be the most reliable. So that means that they're likely to have true information on those web pages, rather than maybe being inaccurate or being made up. So preferably try and use really good sources of information like, big organisations that are publishing information like this. Wikipedia is a really useful tool. There are some really good articles on Wikipedia, and some of them are really good and really accurate, and they've been updated and added by experts in the field. So a lot of Wikipedia's articles are, really well fact-checked, really useful, but just make sure that if you're using Wikipedia, you're checking that the references on that article have been added and that they're accurate. And usually the great thing about Wikipedia is that when articles have not got enough references and they haven't been referenced properly, you will actually get a warning message at the top of that article which says, this article hasn't been referenced and this may not be accurate. So just have a look out for that. And generally, just by kind of looking at the article, you can see the references are the little blue numbers that appear just in the top corner of a word, and that shows that there's an article or something else to back up that point. So it's kind of like when you write an essay and you have to include quotes, just like that. When you write an article on Wikipedia and submit it, you have to provide references for everything you're saying to show that you've got that from a really good source of information. So just be careful with that. But other than that, Wikipedia is a really fantastic and useful tool to use. When you do get information from things like blogs, social media, sometimes people might have blogs about poetry, or they might have blogs about history, things like that. They can be really, really good and really interesting, but just try and make sure that if you see any kind of facts or anything like that from those sites, kind of try and double check them somewhere else. See if you can find someone else has written about that. See if you can have a look on Wikipedia. See if you can have a look on a university's webpage or something like that, and just check that that sounds accurate from what else you've learned about that source. And if you're not sure, if something seems like it might not be true, then it's probably best to just not include that information unless you can back it up with another source. Another one, and this is really, really important and really crucial, don't just use Google and read through loads of articles, and don't just get really bored reading and doing the same thing. You should be looking for articles, but you should also be looking for YouTube videos, documentaries. Try going on BBC iPlayer, see if there's any really interesting documentaries. Search for YouTube video clips about the topic. You can look for podcasts, you can look for blogs. Really try and be creative with the different sources that you're using. So it doesn't all have to be written words, it can be pictures, diagrams, it can be videos. I want you to really look for different sources of information. And this is also really interesting because the more different ways that you process a piece of information, so if you watch a video on something and you read an article about it, and maybe you read a blog, maybe you look at some images, this will really help you to learn, because your brain is having to process that information in all these different formats, and it will make it stick into your memory a lot better. So try and be creative and be a bit different with the sort of information that you're looking for. So I'm revealing now your task that you're going to be doing. You are going to be making yourself some revision notes or a revision poster on Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. So you can include information that you've learned in lessons. So you can include some of the information that we looked at in the context lesson, some of the information that we looked at in the language lesson. You can pick out some key quotations from there and things like that. But I also want to see you doing some of your own research, okay? Now, you don't have to do all of these bullet points, okay? These are some suggestions for some things that you could include. So really I'm only looking for, a few bullet points or a couple of paragraphs, or, if you're doing this digitally, maybe some links, some pictures. But I want you to see if you can do maybe 2 to 3 of these at least, of these bullet points, and have a go. So I've just given some suggestions just so that you have some ideas of things that you could look for online. So firstly, you could be researching the history of slavery in America. So you might find some articles or a short documentary on YouTube, or YouTube's really good for kind of quick summary videos with like cartoons and like film clips and things like that. So you might want to research the history of slavery in America. You might want to research the history of the song, so you might want to type into Google Swing Low Sweet Chariot. You might want to see what you can find, see if you can find a Wikipedia page on that song, or see if you can find some videos about it. We've already seen a clip from an expert, that Dr. Horace Boyer, so there's probably a lot more videos out there and articles out there on that song, on that poem. So see if you can research the song. You might want to find more information out about Wallace Willis. Does anyone know anything about him, the person that wrote the song? Can you find any examples of other spiritual songs, other songs, written during that time, or other kind of Christian songs? Maybe there's modern versions. Can you see any similarities or differences between this and Swing Low Sweet Chariot? Can you find if any famous singers have recorded any versions of the song? Has anyone recorded a version of Swing Low Sweet Chariot? Anyone that you're familiar with, or anyone that's really famous in history? And you could also research facts about the kind of Christian side. So maybe you could look up some information about Christianity, look up more information about the Bible story of Elijah that inspired the song, and look up some of that imagery and some of those facts. That will also really, really help you to understand this poem better. So have a think about what you might want to be interested in researching from this list. Maybe pick out 2 to 3 of those bullet points and start thinking about where you're going to look for those information, for those sources. So just a point about how this is going to be, how it's going to be submitted, and what kind of how it's going to be formatted. So your postal revision guide, it could be handwritten, so you could just write this out in your notebook. That's absolutely fine. You can just, do some bullet points. Maybe you can draw some pictures, you can draw some diagrams, you can say, where you found this. This was in a YouTube video that I watched, or this was an article from the BBC, for example. But you could also do a digital version if you have a computer or laptop, or if you feel more comfortable. You can make it in OneNote, or you could make it in a Word document. And you can email that to me or upload that on OneNote. That's absolutely fine as well. So I don't mind if it's handwritten or digital. It's completely up to you. As I said, feel free to use pictures and diagrams. You can include links. You can explain where you got the information from. And I'm really excited to see what new information you can find out in your research. And I'm really interested to see the different kind of ways that students are going to approach this research as well. And it'll show me a bit more about your interests outside of English. So maybe some people have some real interest in history or some real interest in music, and they can kind of bring that into their research. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing this. And obviously I want you to take time on this. I don't want you to sit, feel like you have to sit down for hours and do this. You can do it over a few days. So as long as you submit your work to me on OneNote or email kind of by the end of the week, or early next week, then that's absolutely fine, okay? But just make sure at the end of this video that you are doing the quiz. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next lesson. And now all you need to do is click the link in the description and complete the quiz. And I'm looking forward to seeing your completed research posters or revision guides. So I'll see you in the next lesson.